Alright guys, in this video I want us to focus on three things. I want us to look at expressing fractions as percents, expressing decimals as percents, and then lastly expressing a percent as a decimal. Alright, so first we're going to look at expressing a fraction as a percent. And so what we want to do is we want to take the numerator and we want to divide that by the denominator. And so we're just going to see how many times 5 goes into 2. Now we know that 5 can't go into 2, so we have to add a 0. But before we add a 0, we have to add a decimal. And what I suggest is once you add that decimal, go ahead and add it to your quotient as well. Now 5 goes into 20 4 times. 4 times 5 is 20. Subtract down, and we get a remainder of 0. And so what we see is that 2/5 as a decimal is 0.4. Okay. Now keep in mind 0.4 is not a percent. Okay, that's just going from a fraction to a decimal. So we still have to turn this into a decimal. A percentage. And there's two ways of looking at it. You can either multiply by 100. Okay. Or remember, when you multiply by 100, you really are just taking your decimal and moving it 2 places to the right. And so now we have to put a 0 for our placeholder. And so then what we get is 40%. Okay, so 2/5 as a decimal is the same as 40%. All right, let's try one more. Okay, let's say we have 3/8, and you want to take 3/8 and you want to express that as a percent. Well, again, we're going to divide our denominator into our numerator. So we have 8 divided into 3. Now I know 8 doesn't go into 3, so add my decimal, add my 0, bring my decimal to the top. Now 8 goes into 30 3 times. 3 times 8 is 24. Subtract down, and we get 6. Add a 0, bring it down. 8 goes into 60 7 times. 7 times 8 is 56. Subtract down, we get 4. And then add a 0, bring it down, and 8 goes into 45 times, and that's evenly, so we get 0.375 as my decimal. Now again, we have to convert that into a percent still, so we're going to take our decimal 2 places to the right, and we get 37.5%. Alright, so that is how we take fractions and express them as percents. Alright, now let's look at expressing a decimal as a percent. And so we want to take 0.63 or 63 hundredths. We want to turn this into a percentage. Now we just saw with the first example, in order to take a fraction to a percent, we went from a fraction to a decimal and then to a percent. And so the way we did that, again, was either by multiplying by 100 or just taking your decimal and moving it 2 places to the right. And so when we do that, we get 63%. Alright, let's look at one more. So let's say we have 0.875. Again, now to take this decimal, convert it to a percentage, we're going to take our decimal 2 places to the right. That's going to give me 87.5%. Alright, so that's how we go from a decimal to a percent. We just take our decimal, move it 2 places to the right, or by multiplying by 100. Alright, now lastly, let's look at how to express a percent as a decimal. Alright, so let's say we have 72%. Now, in order to go from a decimal to a percent, we just moved our decimal twice to the right. So now to go the opposite way, we're just going to take our decimal, we're going to move it twice to the left. The problem here is we don't see a decimal. And so remember, with any whole number, if you don't see a decimal, it's understood to be at the end. So really, we have 72 with our decimal at the end. Now keep in mind, because we're going from percent to a decimal, our percent sign is just going to drop off. And we're going to take that decimal, and now we're going to go the opposite direction. So we're going to go 2 places to the left. And so 72% is 0.072 or 72 hundredths. And if you want to put a 0 in front of the decimal, you can. It's just the same thing. Alright, let's look at one more. let's say we have 43.6%. Now again, to turn this into a decimal, I'm just going to rewrite it with no percent sign. And now I'm going to take my decimal 2 places to the left, and so I get 0.436 or 436 thousandths. And that's going from a percent to a decimal.